And if the answer is 0, what are you waiting for? Right? You waited for a phone call? Give me your number. I'll call you. Hello, Eric's here. Start doing it, right? You got to start taking action. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome to one of my favorite times of the week. I hope it's your favorite time, where we get to do Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole, where we get to talk about what it means to be world class. You want to be the best in the business. You want to be the CISO that all other CISOs want to be, right? And yes, you all want to be that. And you want to be the CISO that all companies want to hire you. You want to get in to a bidding war when you start looking for a job where you are not interviewing, but the companies that want to hire you are interviewing you and trying to convince you to take that job. How does that sound? All right. World class is pretty great place to be, and I know every one of you can get there. So before we jump into today's teaching and information I want to share with you, I really just want to check in. We're getting into February, depending on when you listen to this, right? Can you believe we're already halfway through the first quarter of another year, right? Things sometimes fly so quick, right? And want to just see how you're doing. How are you with your goal for this year? What is your goal? What is your objective that you want to accomplish? Now, yes, you can do what I apply to all areas of your life, but I'm really focused on Chief Information Security Officers. You're listening to this most likely because you either are a CISO and want to become a better CISO, you are a CISO at a smaller company and want to move to a bigger company, or you are in IT security and you're looking for your first CISO position. Regardless of that, are you crystal clear in what your goal and objective for this year is? If not, get out a piece of paper, get out a pen, and let's start writing. Right? Start writing down. Remember, you want it to be specific, measurable, achievable, risky, time-based, applicable, and realistic. You want it to fit all those characteristics, right? The SMARTER goal methodology. So don't say you want a new job. Say you want to become a CISO for a Fortune 100 company making a base salary of $450K with a total comp of $800K. Notice that's specific. That's measurable, right? It's for many of you, depending on where you're at, that's a little risky. That's pushing the envelope of where you might be today. But it's achievable, it's applicable, it's tied to what you want to do. That's the level of detail that you want to make sure you have. And then my question is great. We're 6 to 8 weeks into the new year. What have you done to move towards that goal? What have you put in place to be able to accomplish that? Remember, world-class CISOs need to be thought leaders. So what content are you producing? What content are you putting on social media? What events are you presenting at? World-class CISOs need to write. They need to be able to present. So I want to go in and see what content have you written? What videos have you produced? What events have you spoke at? And if the answer is 0, what are you waiting for? Right? You waited for a phone call? Give me your number. I'll call you. Hello, Eric's here. Start doing it. Right? You got to start taking action. I am a huge believer that you can accomplish anything you want, and every one of you can be world-class CISOs, but it's not going to happen by sitting on the couch watching Netflix and eating bonbons, right? Not going to happen. You got to take action. What action have you been taking? And then, this is true for everyone, but especially folks that are CISO who want to move up. What networking events are you going to? What other executives are you meeting? What other entities are you working on? Have you put together your list of the top 10 companies you'd like to work for? Have you started researching and looking at what they do? Have you pulled their financials? Have you started reaching out to different executives in that organization? If not, what are you waiting for? If you're looking for your first CISO position, have you updated your resume? Have you made it a executive strategic resume and not technical? You might say, Eric, how do I know if I do that? Apply to 5 jobs. If you apply to 5 jobs and you don't get any callbacks, your resume, and I'm going to use a very, very technical term here, is stinky poo-poo. It's not good. Right? If you get 4 of the 5 jobs you apply to, you get a callback from somebody in HR, awesome, the resume is good. Now you might say, but Eric, I'm not going to do that yet because I'm not looking for a job. Why not? You don't have to take the job, but if your goal is by October to have your first CISO position, you're not a CISO now, to have your first CISO position, wouldn't it be smart to make sure 8 or 9 months now out, which is now, that you have a good solid resume? Or do you want to wait till September to realize your resume is not good? So why wouldn't you start putting your resume out now? And then if you do get callbacks, you can always say, oh, another opportunity came up and I'm not currently looking. It's not going to hurt you down the road if you're professional about it. But oh, wait a second. If you want to get your first CISO job, not only do you need a world-class resume, but don't you need world-class interview skills? And how do you build them? Just like a muscle, you do it. So why wouldn't you go in and take those interviews? Recognizing the first 8 or 10 or 15 or 20, you're not going to do good and you're going to learn. But once again, wouldn't you want to make those mistakes now and not wait? And then you go, but Eric, what if I do well on the interviews and I do get a job offer? So let me ask you a question. If your goal was in October to get your first CISO position and you got it in May and it meets all the criteria, are you really going to be upset? Are you really going to be frustrated? Now you might go, but Eric, I have other commitments. So great. You could say, listen, I had other opportunities come up. I'm no longer available, but I'll be available again in September. And if that's too long, they might say, well, we can't wait. Say, okay. But once again, are you any worse off than you were? Now, you have a verified resume, you have solid interviewing skills, and you know that people want to hire you. Even if that happens in May, is that bad to have all of that information going into September, October to meet your goal? So those are the type things of don't wait. Start taking action today, right? Starting putting plans in place. Now, if you tell me that, Eric, I'm going to wait to August because I need these skills, and you're studying those skills and you're learning those skills, then that's different. But I would still say, why not start sooner than later? What made you getting your first CISO position in October? Was there anything really magical about that? Why not September? Why not August? Why not July? Right? We tend to push off things so we have an excuse not to do it. Accelerate. Move it up. Make it go quicker. And once again, hopefully you know that my heart is about helping you. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be doing these free podcasts every single week. I love doing them, right? Many people have told me that I need to start charging for these or I need to stop doing them because I have so many other things to do that are direct revenue generators for the company. And I say, no, I care about people. I want to make a difference. And even if you don't have any money and you don't spend any money with me, I still want to help you. I still believe you can do world-class, and listening to these podcasts every single week, you will eventually get there. But I also want you to know there's an acceleration path. We have our CISO certification, which is a 6-month program. We're also rolling out early release, a 2-month accelerated. It's a smaller but accelerated that still has some group coaching and other pieces. So if you're interested in that, you definitely want to go to CISO Cert or email me, ecole@secure-anchor.com, and I'll hook you up with Kaylee. She'll take really good care of you if you're interested in that program. So we are starting to roll out some other options there. But right now, our primary is a 6-month CISO cert that has knowledge transfer. It has coaching with me, private peer group, everything you need to accelerate and be ready to go. And most people, they start the program saying that, okay, they're going to do the program for 6 months, and then afterwards, they're going to start looking for a job. And I incentivize and help them on the coaching that many of them 4 to 6 months into the program, they're leaving the program with their dream ideal job or dream ideal company. So I just want to let you know that option is available. If you want to, CISO cert, secureanchor.com/CISO. And there'll be a video there, gives you some more details, and you can sign up coaching, or just email me, ecole@secure-anchor.com, and I'll get you hooked up with one of my amazing team members that'll take really, really good care of you. So are you taking care of yourself? Do you have clear goals? Are you taking action to move towards that? What I'd like to now do is switch gears. I always start with a little encouragement, motivation, make sure you're focused there, because remember, 360, you need to have mind, body, focus, and technical in order to be world class. So now what I'd like to move towards is now giving you some world-class CISO advice, knowledge, and expertise. What I want to talk about on this podcast is what are the things that an executive needs to know about cybersecurity. Because remember, to be world-class, you need to speak their language. You need to speak business and communicate them in business. You can't go in with techie mumbo jumbo. But with that said, speaking their language, you need to make sure that they have a proper high-level strategic understanding of some core principles in cybersecurity. Because if the executive believes that cybersecurity is something different than what it is, or that you should never, ever get breached, and if you do, you get fired, that's going to set you up for failure. That's going to give you a huge, huge disconnect. So the first number one conversation you have to have with your CEO, executive team, and board of directors, and I recommend you do this even before you get hired, but if you're currently hired, have the conversation. In any real, practical sense of the word, 100% security does not exist. We, as long as we have functionality and as long as we're making money and revenue, we will not be 100% secure. We have to have that conversation. I often joke with clients, and some of them were very, very big contracts where they were going to give me a huge contract, and they basically said, Eric, we'll sign it under one condition: if you guarantee that we'll be 100% secure. I said, sure, but you have to listen to everything I say. And they say, great. I'm like, we're moving. They're like, what do you mean we're moving? If you want to be 100% secure, we're going to move to Pennsylvania, and you're going to be an Amish company. Last time I checked, horse and buggies and candles can't be hacked. All right? But if you want to have computers and functionality and websites and funnels and all that great stuff, you need to recognize that 100% security doesn't exist. And you can show them the chart, 100% security equals 0 functionality. And then you go down and you have 0 security, 100% functionality. So essentially what you want to make sure the executives understand is the law of cybersecurity. And the law of cybersecurity is this: when you increase functionality, you decrease security. Or to put it a little differently, when you add or increase functionality, you increase the risk. They must understand that those two have a correlation. So every time you're adding functionality that can make revenue or enhance the company, you're decreasing the security and or increasing the risk to your organization. That is the law, whether you like it or not. And the problem is many executives either don't know, don't understand, or ignorant of that law. Well, that's a very dangerous position to be in. It's sort of like you walking around and not knowing or understanding the law of gravity. So you get to a 10-story building, you don't understand the law of gravity, and you step off that building. Well, guess what? You're going to be introduced to gravity very quickly. So whether you believe in gravity or not is not going to stop it from impacting you. So whether an executive does or does not believe the law of security, it's still going to impact their organization. And this is probably one of the biggest problems out there. And you might say, but Eric, how do you know that? What is almost textbook when a company suffers a breach? When a company suffers a breach, 99% of the time, within 48 hours, what occurs? They fire the chief information security officer. Whoever's responsible for cybersecurity gets fired, which means they were not expecting that to happen. They did not expect a breach to happen, and because a breach happened, they now fire that person. So that is the problem. Now, if you're okay with switching jobs fairly often, then you don't have to let your executives know that 100% security doesn't exist with functionality. When you increase functionality, you decrease security, and that we are going to get breached. We are going to have a compromise on my watch. If you don't do that, you're going to be switching jobs very, very quickly. You're going to be moving around a lot. So you want to make sure they understand the outcome of cybersecurity is not to prevent all attacks. That's impossible. The goal of cybersecurity is to have timely detection and control the damage. Now, yes, I can see a differential here. If you have a breach that you've detected in a month or two and you contain the damage, you should get to keep your job. Because that is going to happen. That's a reality of the situation, and you did what you were supposed to. Now, where it gets a little tricky is in some of these cases where there's a breach and it goes undetected for 3.5 years and 500 million records get compromised. Now, in those cases, right, it's a little different because, yes, there is some negligence component in that, because in a perfect ideal world, that should have been detected, contained sooner, unless you're in a situation where the CISO was saying, this is a problem, we need to change and we need to fix it, no one's listening. But I would argue back that if you're a CISO and you're fighting for 3.5 years to have proper security and nobody's listening to you, you probably should have left that organization 1.5 years to 2 years ago. Because clearly, if they're not listening, following, or understanding what you're doing, then you're setting yourself up for failure in that situation. So you want to make sure that you're also accepting some responsibility for that action. So the first thing and first conversation is understanding the general principles of security, what the goal is, and recognizing that breaches are going to happen. The next conversation you have to have with executives is that cybersecurity is an enterprise problem. It's like many other HR issues and challenges. It's not, HR isn't responsible to make sure that everyone in the organization behaves. It's every individual's responsibility to make sure that they properly behave. Cybersecurity is the same way. It only takes one person to click on a link or open an attachment or set a weak password or send information out of the organization that causes the entire enterprise to be compromised. So you're there, cybersecurity, to put together an effective program and put together proper metrics in place to track it, but it has to be something that every business unit has responsibility for. Now, this one is a little more of a mature conversation, but it's one you definitely want to have, and it's this. Cybersecurity must be a KPI for every business unit, key performance indicator. Right now in most organizations, the main KPIs for business leaders and executives like managers, directors, vice presidents are, of course, revenue and profitability, but it also is compliance with HR policies and other things. We need to add security as a KPI. If a vice president is not following or enforcing security with their own organization, and they encourage bad security practices, that should have a negative impact on their bonus. And if they are positively reinforcing and following the security policies and enforcing a culture of cybersecurity within their business unit, they should be rewarded and bonused for that. Now, I will warn you, that's a hard fight because most organizations, the way they're set up with security is completely and totally flawed. The way most companies are set up is this. Executives, business leaders, and even employees can do anything they want, whenever they want, when it comes to cybersecurity, ignoring, violating, or not following any policies. And security has none of the authority to fix it, but all of the responsibility. Right? And we see that time and time again, where security tells a business unit, don't do this. They do it anyway. A major breach happens. Nothing happens to that vice president, but the CISO gets fired. That is not a culture to win. If you have an environment where security has no authority to change anything, but all of the responsibility, that organization is not going to be successful. And you have to have that conversation with your executives. Now, here's the way to do it, is don't ask for the authority, transfer the responsibility. Because it's not practical for security to have authority for everyone across the whole company. That's not valid, legit, or even practical, that you can walk up to the vice president of engineering and say, we're firing your best employee because they didn't follow this rule or they clicked on a link, right? That's just not going to scale, and you don't want that. The better option is take the people that have the authority and give them the responsibility. Now, when somebody in engineering violates and doesn't follow the security policy and clicks on a link they're not supposed to, it's the vice president of engineering that now is responsible. They're the ones that are held accountable, and they have to answer and potentially be financially impacted. So that's the next conversation you have to have with your executives, is we need to change the model. Security is there to put in structure, provide guidance and oversight, but they can't be the ones responsible. Whoever has the authority needs to have the responsibility for cybersecurity. So we want to put KPIs in place, and we want to transfer responsibility to those business executives. The next important thing is we need to make sure that executives understand cybersecurity is not binary. It's a decision like any other business decision. What I mean by that is, it's not, should I do this? Is this secure? It's never yes or no. Right? I always love this when I speak or work with people who give keynotes. I'll always have somebody come up to me and go, oh, so I bet you're going to jump on stage and tell me what I can't do. That I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that. That's old school cyber. That doesn't work and that doesn't scale. What I say is no. I'm going to teach you how to make decisions that incorporate cybersecurity. Because in any given situation, it's never a yes or no. It's, is this acceptable risk? And remember, to grow businesses is risky. So there are some times where you might have to take calculated risk. The problem today is most companies, when it comes to cybersecurity, are making blind decisions because they have no clue of what's going on. So the conversation with the executives is train everyone, including the executives, to basically ask two questions. The first question everyone asks already, which is this: what is the value or benefit? So should we buy this company? What is the value or benefit? We increase customers and revenue. Let's do it. Should we put up a new website? What is the value and benefit? We'll increase lead generation and revenue. Let's do it. But the second question that must be asked is, what is the risk or exposure? So the value or benefit of buying this company is we can double our revenue. The risk is they're probably compromised. They have vulnerable systems, and it's going to negatively impact our business and cost us $7 million. Is that worth it? This is cybersecurity in a nutshell. What is the value and benefit? What is the risk and exposure? Is the value worth the risk? That's the decision-making process. Now, cybersecurity can provide input. We can provide options, but ultimately, it's a business decision. Now, you might say, oh no, Eric, that'll never work in my company because everyone's just going to accept every risk. But here's the difference. If they do, they're responsible and they get fired if it was a bad decision. So now, if the vice president of engineering decides to put all the source code, even though you recommend against it, but they say the value and benefit of having all source code available from the internet is worth the risk and exposure, and they're fully aware. That's the big difference. Today, they're not. So our job at cybersecurity is not to say yes or no. Our job is not to go in and stop things. Our job is to make sure that they're making educated, informed decisions and provide advice. Right? We can tell them these are all the risks. We don't think it's worth it. We think it's too big, but if you want to accept the risk, we'll transfer the risk to you. And now the executives, the CEO, and everyone knows that cybersecurity doesn't recommend this, but engineering is going to accept this risk because they feel it's worth the revenue numbers. And then if it pays off, they get all the benefit. But if it doesn't and there's a major attack or compromise, now the VP of engineering gets fired, not security. So this is a huge cultural shift. And the problem why it hasn't worked is most security people try it from the bottom up. Security engineers try to implement it from the bottom. This is not going to work unless it's top down. That's why these are discussions you have to have with the executives. I recommend a new CISO in the beginning should be weekly, minimum twice a month, meeting with the executive teams, having these discussions. Because most businesses are ignorant when it comes to cyber. They're making really bad decisions because they don't understand the principles. They have never been educated on what the core laws and rules are. And the current way it's set up is counterproductive and guaranteed to fail. So world-class CISOs have world-class business discussions with executives where you want to go in and talk about the reality of cybersecurity. You need to recognize that breaches are going to happen. You need to make sure they understand the core rules. You need to recognize that business units must have both the authority and responsibility and put KPIs in place. And if you start putting all those measures within your organization, you are now building the foundation for success. Because let's face it, you can have the best network architecture on the planet. You could have the best authentication and authorization. You can have the best logging out there. But if you don't have a culture in security enforced by the executives and understood by the CEO, what's going to happen is what we've seen. Breach after breach after breach after breach. All of the large breaches we've heard about and the small ones that no one's heard about, in almost every one of those cases, they've had security budget and they have world-class security teams. The technical security people are awesome. The problem is the communication and conversation has never been had with the executives, and they don't have the culture, which means all the technology doesn't do any good if you don't have the foundation. So work on the foundation, work on building a culture of cybersecurity within your organization, and you'll notice in weeks, months, maybe years, everything will start changing. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Life of a CISO, and I look forward to seeing you next week.